Have you ever wondered where our big ideas really come from? I'm not just talking about technology. I mean our deepest beliefs, our sense of right and wrong. What if the blueprint for all of it has been hiding in plain sight, right above our heads, this whole time? So, let me ask you a question. What could our ancient moral codes possibly have in common with modern machine learning? I mean, one is built on centuries of tradition and human feeling, the other on cold, hard technology. They seem like they're from different planets, right? Well, believe it or not, they do. They actually share the exact same ancestor. They both come from this single, incredibly powerful source of information that taught the human brain its most fundamental skill. That's right, the patterns of the night sky, the predictable, majestic dance of the sun, the moon, and the stars. This was humanity's very first teacher, and the lessons it taught us became the foundation for, well, pretty much everything that came after. So let's trace that lineage. We're going to follow the thread from ancient astronomy all the way to modern AI and see how the sky literally patterned our minds. Okay, so the core concept we're talking about here is something called the mother pattern. And it's based on a really simple but profound observation about our ancient environment. Think about it from our ancestors' perspective. The world on the ground was chaotic, right? It was unpredictable. But the world above, it was the exact opposite. The sun always came up. The moon always went through its phases. The stars wheeled overhead in these perfect, predictable circles. This cosmic clockwork was the ultimate training ground for a brain just learning how to spot and predict patterns. And this slide really breaks down why the sky was such a uniquely powerful teacher. Its patterns were incredibly regular, they were persistent over millions of years, and they were visible to basically everyone on Earth. Nothing on the chaotic ground could even come close. The sky was basically a masterclass in reliability, teaching our brains to look for and expect order in the universe. And you can still see the fingerprints of these first lessons everywhere today. Our calendars, our ancient myths about eclipses being omens, even the names of our days of the week. Sunday for the sun, Monday for the moon. These are all cultural fossils of our ancestors, trying to make sense of the sky's rhythms. But here's where it gets really interesting. This mother pattern didn't just stay in the sky. Once the brain learned the skill of pattern recognition, it started using that new tool everywhere, creating a whole family tree of ideas. So check out this journey. It all starts with the cosmic mother pattern. From there, we applied it inward to the biological patterns inside our own bodies. Then we turned it outward to the social patterns of our tribes. This eventually led to the engineered patterns of the scientific method, and finally, all the way to the cognitive patterns we now call algorithms. Now, the very first application was the most obvious one: survival. The brain took this brand new skill it learned from the stars and pointed it directly at the challenges of just staying alive here on Earth. So, what did that look like? Well, we started recognizing the rhythms inside our own bodies, like our heartbeat and breathing. And then we learned to see the patterns in the world around us, the migration of animals, the growing seasons for plants. This was the birth of self-regulation, hunting strategies, and, of course, agriculture. Okay, so once survival was a little more manageable, the brain turned the same pattern-finding machinery towards a new and much more complex puzzle: other people. And this was a massive leap, Seeing patterns in faces and gestures became the foundation for empathy. Finding rhythms and sounds gave us language. And recognizing these cycles of behavior, like doing something wrong and then making up for it, or reward and punishment, that's what created our very first moral codes. In this final stage, we made a really crucial leap. This is the real game changer. We went from just finding patterns that were already there to actively inventing and engineering new ones. This is where abstraction really takes over. We invented the pure patterns of mathematics and music. We engineered the repeatable patterns of the scientific method. And that line of thinking, that skill, leads directly to today, where we design algorithms, which are, at the end of the day, just machines we build specifically to find patterns in data. So, you might be wondering, how in the world does a simple observation of the sky evolve into a piece of code running on a supercomputer? Well, it turns out there's a pretty predictable path for how these patterns mature. Just look at this sequence. It starts with simple observation, watching the planets move. That observation gets turned into a ritual, maybe a yearly festival. That ritual gets explained through a narrative, a myth. Over time, that myth gets stripped down to its abstract mathematical core. Then, science develops an experiment to test that core idea. And finally, that entire procedure gets encoded as an algorithm. It's a truly incredible journey from just stargazing to writing software. Now, let's bring this grand cosmic story right back down to Earth, into the 3-pound universe inside your own skull. Because this isn't just some ancient history lesson, it's happening in your head right now, as we speak. There's this quote that just nails it. Your brain isn't just sitting there taking in information like a camera. Its number one job, its primary function, is to guess what's going to happen next. Think of it this way. Your brain is a powerful prediction engine. And the base code, the original operating system, was written by those first super reliable patterns in the night sky. It learned to anticipate, to project, to see the next step in a sequence before it even happened. It's incredible when you think about it. That ancient machinery is still what we're using today. The very same mental tools that our ancestors used to track a planet's motion across the sky are now used to build complex scientific models and design modern AI. Which leaves us with a fascinating and maybe slightly unsettling final thought. For millennia, our brains were trained by the slow, predictable, natural rhythms of the sky. But today, our brains are being trained by a totally new environment, one filled with high-speed, artificially generated, and often chaotic digital patterns. So the big question is, what kind of thinking is this new teacher creating in us?